Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. And today is Hump Day.
Uh-oh. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
It's Hump Day.
Hump day!
It's Hump Day.
Hump day!
That's right, folks. Today is Hump Day. It's the middle of the week. It's the day in which we attempt to begin the weekend, sometimes with success, sometimes not. But as I like to say, the fun is all in the trying. And by the way, folks, we are attempting it right now, or at least Mike is attempting it right now. He is, well, I'm not going to say where he is because I don't know if that's well, he's going for business, and it is not necessarily pleasure, but I will just say the place where he is going, I'm sure will be quite pleasurable. I'm sure he will have a ton of fun. He's getting his stuff together. So, Mikey, you're missed. We'll look forward to hearing from you. I'm sure Mikey, if he is paying attention, he will be commenting and chiming in because that's what Mike does. Even when he's not here, he likes to give me a hard time. And I very much appreciate that. I very much appreciate that. But I'm here, you're here. We're taking your call. No, you're not your calls. We're definitely taking your comments. If you're watching the program live on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Actually, we're not on Twitter live today, but on YouTube. If you're on Rumble, however you are partaking of the program, we would very much like to hear from you. Just go ahead, give us your comments, and we will we'll share it with the audience, see what they think. Also, let's get it. We're going to get into the program, but before we do, you know what we also have to do? We also got to pay those bills, right? Paying the bills is a pretty big deal. So we're going to make sure that we do that for you. Let's see. Let's pull that over, and there we go. Bam. All right. We're going to start with Hitman Industries. Giving a quick shout out to them. They have rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase. Check them out at hitmanindustries.net. We've got the California Republican Assembly working to help elect conservatives at all level of government, from school board all the way up to President of the United States. Check them out today at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Ronald Reagan once referred to them as the conscience of the Republican Party. So you need to go there and you need to check them out today. Then we've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters available on the market. You will find them at hogholsters.com. That's hogholsters.com. Make sure when you go there, though, you use the discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces, one word. Make sure you get your hog holster today on discount. By the way, just like it is right up there. And then we've got the best in, I'm sorry, I keep saying the best. Yes, they are the best because this is the place where if you're looking for gear, outdoor gear, indoor gear, cold weather gear, hot weather gear, you're looking for backpacks, you're looking for bags, you're looking for helmets, you're looking for whatever you are looking for tactical, you will find it at uscombatgear.com. They have a huge selection. They have competitive prices. In particular, if you are purchasing for a unit, if you're purchasing for a group, if you're purchasing for your club, or maybe your department, this is the place to go. Check them out. Once again, uscombatgear.com, where you can find all things tactical except the gun. All right. Now we can get into today's stories. Riots are still taking place there in Los Angeles. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing about the riots that are taking place in LA, well, let's just say that there's a narrative out there. And that narrative is not necessarily one that is aligned with the truth. The narrative that the left keeps trying to push out there, that they keep trying to portray, is that everything that's going on out there is, that it's nice and peaceful. Here's Chris Murphy on MSNBC talking about how peaceful things are there or have been there in the city of Los Angeles.
To play going on, it's staggering, and it's all out in the open. It's almost as if to say, when you're president, you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the conversation we're having right now inside the Democratic Party. How urgent is the moment? You know what I believe, Nicole. I believe that there's no guarantee that we are going to have a free and fair election in 2026. I think he's trying to rig our democracy, to destroy dissent, to cripple the political opposition, so that even if his approval ratings are in the 30s in the fall of next year, there isn't the ability for his opposition to muster a real campaign. So I think we've got to act with tremendous urgency, and we have to make the corruption and the destruction of democracy the #1 issue. So we've got this crypto regulation bill pending before Congress. The only way we should pass that bill, the only way.
Okay, I played the wrong video. Because in the end, what I've done is I've kind of put the cart before the horse. In other words, that's their whole goal right now. Their whole goal right now is to blame everything that is going wrong in the country on Donald Trump. They're trying to say there's nothing wrong. There's no there in terms of what is taking place. For example, here's Maxine Waters pointing out or talking about how these are completely peaceful protests.
And even those who were out of step with what we are advocating, peaceful protest, did not create any violence. Nobody was shot, nobody was killed. Get it in your head. And so when martial law is called, what are you going to say? I missed the point. Don't miss the point, you all. Don't think that somehow, because they called out the National Guard, there was violence. There was no violence. I was on the street. I know. And I went from downtown detention back out into the community, talking to people what happened in Paramount, what happened in Compton, what happened in Inglewood. So, first of all, get it straight. And don't just rely on what you're being told or the few incidents that you saw.
So to be clear, they probably could have played hours of that footage, of things like that occurring. What you saw there was people throwing rocks at law enforcement, at their vehicles, people throwing rocks at law enforcement. You saw police cars being lit on fire. And all of this happened before any deployment of any National Guard. So you can't blame Donald Trump for it. In fact, that's kind of the point of the first story here, because that was one of the big things that Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was talking about. He's like, he's claiming that basically that that the riots began only after Donald Trump federalized the National Guard and sent them and deployed them. Here we go, right here. Here it says, here's the claim. Violence only broke out in Los Angeles after President Donald Trump federalized the California National Guard on Saturday, June 7th. It is beyond crazy, and I just realized now that I see this video, I actually have the opportunity. Let me do this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull down the video because I want you to hear from his own words. I want you to hear what Gavin Newsom is saying, because basically what he's trying to convince you of is the fact that everything was peaceful. There was nothing that was going on. That all the violence that is taking place is all because of Donald Trump, and specifically, he's trying to say that it's because he decided to enforce law. In fact, let me play this video from the folks over at The View, and they'll make the same point.
But are people getting a much different view of what's going on in LA depending on where they're watching this play out? Because it's quite different when you're talking to people in LA. Yeah. And very different than what you're seeing on the news. Did you speak to people?
Have you spoken to people in LA?
My whole family's in LA.
What do they say?
They're saying, people are mad. It's been peaceful for days. And then suddenly these guys showed up and flipped everybody out.
Yeah,
so that's what my family is saying.
I heard the same thing. I spoke to about 5 people that live in LA, that work in LA, and they said that these protests were very, very orderly. They weren't violent, and they occurred in about a 4-block radius. Mm-hmm. And we all know how large LA is. And so, in my view, they're is no crisis in Los Angeles that ICE did not cause. That is the fact of the matter, right?
Looks like that.
And
Okay, so let's be clear. There's no crisis that ICE did not cause. So, what was ICE there doing? They were there to arrest people who had committed crimes and were in the country illegally. All right, let's say that again. Who had committed crimes and are in the country illegally. Now, why are they in the community doing it? Because sanctuary jurisdictions like the state of California, like the city of Los Angeles, have instead of when they have these folks, when they have them in jail, instead of calling ICE or honoring the ICE detainer, they have decided to ignore the ICE detainer and release them into the streets. Now, these are people who've committed crimes and are in the country illegally, and ICE has a job. Their job is to deport them. Where do they go and deport them? How about in the very same streets that these sanctuary cities have sent them into? What's Sunny there from The View is basically trying to intimate what Whoopi is trying to say is that if they were not going after violent criminals, if they weren't going after these criminals, none of this would have happened. In other words, if they weren't enforcing the law. That is in essence what we're looking at. That is in essence the whole kit and caboodle of what it is that they're dealing with right there. They're basically saying, "Yep, nope, not interested one bit in enforcing the law." And they want to convince you that these are peaceful people that they're it's not. Now, mind you, and I will say it again, and I've said it every time. I've provided this clarification every single time. If someone is with them who is illegal, and maybe they haven't committed any crime since they've been here, then if someone is with them and they happen to be here illegally, they're going to get swept up too. Because guess what? The crime that they committed was being in the country illegally. Total arrests they have so far is about 300. Or at least that first night, 300 arrests of people who were in the country who were illegal. So, by the way, when you talk about mass deportations, once again, they're specifically arresting these criminals. So, mass deportations, I'm going to assume 300 is not. I don't know that qualifies as mass, but anyway, the whole point here being, folks, is they are not interested in making sure in the law being enforced. That is the exact opposite of what they are interested in. And it's actually, it is what it is. They are who they are. And Democrats, once again, really don't care about all they care about is they hate Donald Trump. That's kind of the crux of the whole thing. They hate Donald Trump, and they want to make sure that his presidency, that none of the things that Donald Trump wants to do get done. If he said that he was going to cure cancer, or he had a cure for cancer, they would come up with a way to make sure that cancer was not cured, because that's who they are. Now, one of the other ways in which this whole thing is failing them, it's not just in the failure of their attempt to rewrite the narrative. They're also failing in the symbolism that is coming out of this. And that has to do largely with the flag and what in God's name are they doing waving the Mexican flag. Now, I want you to think about this. And by the way, that's kind of the crux of a story over at Breitbart. In fact, let me read some of the story for you. It says here, LA riots, how Mexican flag photos are a gift to Donald Trump. As violence erupted, let me clarify. This is Newsweek, not Breitbart. As violence erupted out of immigration enforcement protests, once again, I want you to listen to this. Immigration enforcement, in other words, enforcing the law. That's what they're mad about. In Los Angeles over the weekend, images of protesters waving Mexican flags became a focal point of the coverage and for the Trump administration's reaction. The riots in Los Angeles prove that we desperately need more immigration enforcement personnel and resources. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posted on X, formerly Twitter, Monday morning alongside a photo of a protester waving a Mexican flag. America must reverse the invasion unleashed by Joe Biden of millions of unvetted illegal aliens into our country. Various iterations of the Mexican flag, at times combined with the U.S. flag, are carried. No, they are not combined with the U.S. flag. That is a lie. Were carried by protesters as some streets in Los Angeles turned violent. So you notice how they're trying to tone it down. Some streets. Protesters were angry at federal agents raiding immigrant communities amid efforts to ramp up daily arrests by immigration and customs enforcement. The greatest political gift. As photos of the flags appeared online, flown amid burning vehicles and law enforcement riot gear, senior officials within the White House, within the Trump administration, said this proved there had been an invasion by illegal immigrants, particularly over the last 4 years under President Joe Biden, and that it was necessary to send the National Guard and deport those in the country without legal status. Quote, these idiots waving Mexican flags during the LA riots just gave Donald Trump the greatest political gift, Republican strategist Matt Wiley, who founded Freedom Project USA, told Newsweek. It will be Exhibit A as proof of an invasion. Those images have done more in the last few days to strengthen his ability to crack down on illegal immigration than weeks of messaging ever could. The Trump administration has been trying to ramp up the number of illegal immigrants arrested in recent weeks after the slower than anticipated increase in arrests and removals and multiple lawsuits challenging aspects of the president's policies, including the use of Alien Enemies Act to speed up deportation of alleged gang members. Now, the point that's being made here is real simple. And it's one that I think most of you get. In many cases, these are people who are protesting that people who are in this country illegally, right? In other words, they're burning the flag of the country that they want to stay in. They don't want to leave that country, so they're burning its flag. And the country that many of them or don't want to be deported to, where most of them are from, is Mexico. And the country they don't want to go to is the flag that they're waving. That doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think in all the symbolism in the world, all the people who look at and understand symbolism in the world will tell you, yeah, that's kind of ass backwards. If you want America to believe in what it is that you are standing up for, you wrap yourself in the American flag. You declare your being here to be truly American. You don't do that by burning the flag. You don't do that by waving the flag of the country you don't want to be in. That makes absolutely no sense. The only people for who you could argue it might make sense for are the ones who believe that California actually belongs to Mexico. And it would make sense for them because they believe that this is Mexico. There's only one problem. Yeah, you lost California. Yeah, California whooped your ass in a war and got its independence and then decided to join the United States of America. So, last I checked, Mexico, you can't even really blame the United States for losing California. You lost it. You lost war. Wars have consequences. When you decide you want to get in a war, you decide you want to treat Californians like poop. Californians decided that, you know what? Sorry, we're out of here. And ain't nothing you can do about it. And guess what? There was nothing that they could do about it. Epic failure. And now, hey, now we're on our own. So, but with everything else, once again, the messaging is a bad one. And there's a reason why now well over 55% of people are support the idea of rounding up and deporting illegal immigrants. It's somewhere above 60%. In terms of supporting the raids that are taking the stuff that's taking place in Southern California, the deportation efforts in California, it's something like 55%. Only about 35% of all those polled are against what the president is currently doing, and half of them probably don't even fully understand what is going on. They believe that they're just indiscriminately rounding up brown people, and that's not what's happening. That is not what's happening at all. If it were, they'd have a lot more than they would have arrested a lot more. They would have detained, in the proper term. They would have detained a lot more than 300, if that were how they were conducting their business. But we know that it's not. All right, we know that the right to keep and bear arms is a fundamental right, and historically, if we're looking at history, which you're supposed to be doing when you're analyzing gun control laws these days, that according to Bruin, we know that when it comes down to it, you're supposed to only lose your gun rights when you are convicted of, or you're found to be dangerous, like someone who is engaged in violent acts or been convicted of a violent crime, or or as we've now defined it, a serious crime. They say felonies. Felonies in the past have been serious crimes, mostly dealing with assault and or murder, domestic violence. But there are a bunch of crimes now in various states that are considered to be serious crimes or felonies, but are not necessarily violent. In one case, a father who didn't pay his child support may be denied his gun rights. And this is a piece that's over at Bloomberg Law. It says here, the contempt conviction and 4-year sentence for Maryland father received for not paying court-ordered child support allowed the state to deny him the right to have a gun and charge him as a felon in possession, Maryland's high court said. And that he therefore couldn't be charged as a felon in possession. But Chief Justice Matthew Fader said June 6th, said June 6th for the Maryland Supreme Court that the state law that required disarming of Fuchs passed muster under the U.S. Supreme Court's current Second Amendment analysis. So, in other words, once again, in this particular case, this individual there in Maryland did not engage in a violent crime, but because he was convicted of a felony, lost his right to keep and bear arms. And there are lawsuits right now where they're fighting this, where they're saying, look, no, you should not lose your right to keep and bear arms simply because you've been convicted of a nonviolent felony. So in some places, if you write a check over a certain amount, that would make you guilty of a felony. If you sign the wrong form, you're guilty of a felony. Donald Trump, in the case in New York, they convicted him of 34 felonies, which basically was the same thing, only it was he did it 34 times, so they decided to charge them all as felonies. These are all examples of how nonviolent crimes cause people to lose their fundamental right to keep and bear arms for no reason. One has to wonder, well, what kind of danger are they? I can see if someone is a demonstrated danger, someone who is engaged in violence and has demonstrated that they will continue to engage in violence, I can see why they should lose their right to keep and bear arms. But not in this case. Not in cases where there is no history of violence, no convictions, not even any charges. Just the fact that, we don't like guns and he's convicted of a felony. So keep that in mind as you see these lawsuits continue to come through. Keep in mind that that's what these lawsuits are about. These lawsuits are basically saying it's not that we want violent people to have guns. It's, we give people back their right to vote if they've been convicted of a felony, regardless of whether it's a violent felony or not. Which means that there is life after. We do recognize that once someone has paid their debt to society, we do give them their rights back. There's a reason, and I think it makes sense if someone is guilty of a violent felony. I think it makes sense to, at the very least, hesitate, but in some cases, refuse to give someone their right to keep and bear arms back if there's someone who's demonstrated a tendency towards violence. I hate to say that, but you maybe have forfeited by getting convicted of a violent felony. But if it's nonviolent, just serious but nonviolent, and you don't have a history of violence, why shouldn't you be able to get that right back? Why should that right be kept from you? I don't understand that. Maybe some of y'all out there do, but I don't understand it, and I definitely don't agree with it. All right, next up, a horror at Martha's Vineyards as the help get deported. This, what I love about this story right here is because it really sums up the biggest part of the argument that the left has when it comes to illegal immigration. Their whole point in all of it is, well, if we deport illegal immigrants, who's going to pick all the vegetables? Who's going to do our laundry? Who's going to wipe our butts? As one legislator said from, I believe, Minnesota, or was it Vermont? Anyway, the argument is that these are the people who do low skill jobs for little to no pay in very bad working conditions. These are our new slave labor. This is our new slave labor. And who's going to be our slave labor if we get rid of the illegal immigrants? And here's what's happening. You're pretty much seeing that start to happen right now in Martha's Vineyards. They're calling it hell on earth, a haunting dispatch from Martha's Vineyards after the ICE raids. Let me read this to you. A sailing wind rattles the shutters of the Harborside Inn overlooking Chappaquiddick Island, the last known resting place of Ted Kennedy's American dream. The low fog settles, concealing a quiet devastation here in Martha's Vineyards, where federal immigration officers rounded up dozens of undocumented workers last month in a series of raids that the shell shock residents have dubbed the Calamity. The Washington Post reported this week on how the scrappy island enclave that, quote, prides itself on openness has been left to deal with the painful fallout. The Washington Free Beacon was determined to investigate. So that's exactly what we did. Traveling to Martha's Vineyard these days is arguably not unlike sneaking into an active war zone. Private air travel to the island's small airport was significantly delayed due to a shortage of baggage handlers, and it refused to accommodate an aircraft larger than a puny Embraer Phenom 300, which made for a disappointingly turbulent ride for your humble correspondent and accompanying photographer. The fixer we hired to drive us around stopped returning our messages on Slack. The nearest Uber Black was almost 20 minutes away, forcing us to hail a taxi with filthy cloth seats. Our driver, Rocco, told us about the couple he had just dropped off at the airport. Quote, "They cried the whole way there," he said. "Housekeeper got deported before she could put the wet clothes in the dryer. ICE wouldn't release her even for 10 minutes to take the garbage out or dust the elevator. I think their underwear was still wet. Smelled like hell. It was really sad, Nobody left to walk the dog, so they had to put her down." Okay, I can't read anymore here, folks. Let me here. I'll put this in the comment section in the comment section. You guys can read the article for yourself. But this is a piece that's over at the Washington Free Beacon. That's pretty much mocking what's going on at Martha's Vineyards, because what has happened there, folks, is that the illegal immigrants who were their help, the help has been deported. They've either been deported or they've fled because they don't want to get deported. So now the jobs that quote unquote Americans won't do, now the folks there in Martha's Vineyard have to do for themselves. And what's funny about this has always kind of been the thing. The left has always argued, in particular the elite on the left, because they refuse to do certain jobs. And what's funny about it is that they don't even really they don't even understand how condescending and how elitist they sound. Because here's the real deal. It's not that these are jobs that Americans won't do. It's there are jobs that Americans won't do for the same pay and under the same working conditions as illegal immigrants. And let me tell you something, and I've told you all this before. Once we've dealt with the issue of illegal immigration, stuff is going to cost more. It is, because you're now going to have people who are doing these jobs getting the market wages, not the undercut, not the black market wages that they're paying to the illegal immigrants. It's not going to have the black market costs that result of undesirable or poor or unsafe working conditions that resulted from having illegal immigrants do this work because they wouldn't complain. What's going to result is the real cost, what it should cost. So when you go to a hotel and it costs you more because of the maid service, don't complain, because that's what happens when you deal with illegal immigration. When you got to go into and when you paying a little bit more for meat, well, guess what? You don't have illegal immigrants working in those slaughterhouses anymore. You've got Americans working in those slaughterhouses. It's going to cost more. Anyway, that's the thing that most of them are not going to tell you. That's the thing that the left is. I get it. It is going to cost more, but that is not a reason to treat these people like slaves, like indentured. I mean, a step above slaves, because they have a choice to be here, but they're almost like indentured servants. When you pay them almost nothing under threat of having them kicked out of the country, that's abuse. And no, you should not be doing that. And so the people who are saying, look, we need to have legal immigration, they're doing a lot more to help these folks than the people who say, yeah, we want to protect them. Because the people who want to protect them, they don't want to protect them. They don't. They want to protect their maids. They want to protect their folks. They want to protect the help. They want to protect their cheap labor. That's what they're interested in protecting. And I don't think we should put up with it. All right, folks, so that now brings us to our parting shots. Parting shots are brought to you by Hog Holsters. Just go to hogholsters.com. Use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your hog holster today. Now, I told you before in the very beginning, one of the first things that they wanted to do with this whole thing is they wanted to blame it on Donald Trump. Well, according to our friends over at the Babylon Bee, fake news that you can trust, that's just not so. It says here, quote, "Why would Trump do this?" end quote, cries Gavin Newsom after getting head stuck in a banister. That's right, because all of this stuff is all his fault. Yes, him and California Democrats who decided to give away free health care, who decided to give away housing vouchers, who decided to give away a bunch of stuff to encourage people to come to the United States illegally. That's exactly what they did. Anyway, here's another one also from the Babylon Bee. CNN reports peaceful night in LA, majority of cars not on fire. And that's when you hear them talking about some of this stuff, they're saying, well, it's only happened in this small area. I'm sorry, I saw multiple police cars. And I'm sorry, one police car on fire is one too many. One police car. One person spitting at one police officer is one too many. No, that should not be tolerated. Not at all. Anyway. Then you got here, Marines deployed to another third world country full of hostile foreigners. okay, maybe it's a third world area of a first world country. And yeah, maybe there are a lot of foreigners or people who are in the country illegally, or maybe in the country legally, but not citizens. But yeah, that pretty much interesting. And you know that Trump called in the Marines. There's only one problem. He didn't stop thinking about this. Marine tanks stuck in traffic on the 405. Yeah, anyone who's ever dealt with LA traffic know those tanks are not going to be rolling in. They're not going to be rolling in anytime soon. Yeah, it's going to be a while. Not saying, just saying. All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our program. But before we go, we're going to give one more quick shout out to our sponsors. We're going to start with Hitman Industries, rifle and pistol caliber barrels available for you to purchase, by the way, at any length. But they're available for you to purchase at hitmanindustries.net. The California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party, according to Ronald Reagan. Check them out at cragop.org. And then you've got the best in concealed carry tactical holsters at hogholsters.com. That's HAWG holsters.com, helping Americans wear guns. And then finally, you can find all things tactical except the gun at uscombatgear.com. And that's going to be it for today. Folks, it's just going to be me for the rest of the week. So hardy har har. We're going to have a good time. Do me a favor. Share this with your friends. Let them know about the program. Let them know that we would love to hear from them, because it's always better. It's always better when the homies have some. Anyway, y'all take care. Have fun. And we'll be back tomorrow. Peace out.